Hello, welcome to another edition of Issues with Jide. Here we talk about actions and inactions of those who shape our national and political landscape and how they impact us positively or otherwise. I'm Ibrahim Shaita. Today on the show, Nigerians to pay more for darkness as government hikes electricity tariff. And later on the show, Ohaneze tells President Buhari to release Nnamdi Kanu, Igbo youths in detention. Now, the course of the program, we take your questions, but first, subscribe to our YouTube channel and drop your questions in the comment section. I have joining me via Zoom, the maestro himself, Babajide Kolade-Otitoju. Good evening to you.
Good evening, Brian.
Right, it's good to see you. Now, let's begin with our first topic, where, recall that 4 months after the federal government and the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission quietly ordered the removal of subsidy on electricity and increased end-user tariffs, 6 power distribution companies have got the NERC approval to increase tariffs. This is more difficult times ahead for poor Nigerians, do you think?
Yes, and the unfortunate thing is this is coming at a time when we are not enjoying electricity supply. So the last time electricity tariff was raised, it was premised on the possibility of improved electricity supply. The president in September 2020 defended the so-called service-based tariff, arguing that it will guarantee improved electricity supply. You and I know that between September 2020 and now, we have not really experienced improved electricity supply. Instead, what we see is rampant national grid collapses. We have had up to 140 national grid collapses, 140 national grid collapses in the last 8 years. This is not good enough, because what it does is that the whole country gets plunged into darkness. So this tariff coming at this time, and given that even the so-called promises that some of those clusters, because the electricity distribution companies created clusters for consumers. Some are expected to have not less than 14 hours electricity supply in a day, based on the tariff that was increased at that time. But what we see is the inability of discourse to provide the quantum of electricity that ought to go with the promises made at the time the last increase was made on the tariff. So the concern for most Nigerians is, are we going to have increased electricity supply as a result of the increase in tariff that we have just been introduced to? The answer is not difficult to find, because we are experiencing right now a decline in generating capacity. Where you experience decline in generating capacity, it is not possible to have an uptick in distributing capacity. It is what is generated that will be fed into the national grid. It is what the national grid wills to distributors that it is the quantum of electricity wills to distributors that they will give the end users, although sometimes the distributors can decide to not provide electricity for communities where they suspect that they will not be paid. Communities that are known to constantly hold these electricity distributors, they usually do not enjoy giving them electricity. But the point that I'm making is electricity supply is a relay, is a chain. And because it's a chain, if you do not generate enough, there will not be enough to feed into the transmission leg. And then if the transmission leg does not get enough, it will not be able to transmit enough for the discourse to then provide for the end users. The discourse are the last leg. They are the face of the sector. That is why even for the inadequacies that characterizes the entire sector, it is the discourse that we attack all the time, because they are the face, they are the ones who interface with the rest of us, they are the ones who take money from us. So they are like the poster boys of the sector. This is the situation that we find ourselves. There are many people who have argued that given the situation that we find ourselves, that government needs to take a second look at the privatization exercise that was carried out during the Jonathan era. But not many people are convinced that even if the entire privatization exercise was reviewed, reviewed, that it will be the solution to this problem. That the sector is highly capital intensive. We have spent more than 1.5 trillion, $1.5 billion on the transmission leg alone, from donor agencies, World Bank, the African Development Bank. Remember, the man who used to head the transmission company of Nigeria was even a staff of African Development Bank, who was given to Nigeria to help us solve some of the problems that we are facing. But what I'm saying is, yes, there's a need to take a second look at that privatization exercise. But my own argument will be that we should remove any of the investors that are not living up to expectation, because this is a highly capital intensive sector. And if an investor has not got enough funds, they will not be able to invest heavily in the sector in the manner that can bring real change, in a manner that can make positive things happen in that sector. So I will support removing non-performing investors from the sector, whether they are generating companies, whether they are distribution companies. If they are not performing, we should empower the regulators to get them out of business. But if we do not do anything, we just allow the situation to remain the way it is, definitely Nigerians will not get value for money in terms of electricity generation. We are struggling to even generate, to even wheel 4,000 megawatts. It's a problem for us as a nation. Whereas South Africa, the true giant of Africa, wheels more than 42,000 megawatts each day. Nigeria is struggling. There are times when we will struggle to have just 3,000 megawatts. That cannot bring economic growth and development, because the SMEs need power supply as the engines of growth. They need power supply. What are we facing? Endless days of darkness. That's what we are seeing. Perennial grid collapses, perennial shortage of gas. And since majority of the power stations we have are gas-fired power stations, once we do not have supply of gas, there's nothing to generate.
Okay,
we have this problem. We have to solve a lot of problems. Need to be solved before we can even achieve regular power supply. All we are simply doing is taxing people, getting people to pay more. But even when they pay more, we will not be able to provide the requisite services that we promised them. So we need to sit down and solve this problem.
Right, just like you said, but this sector may remain a mirage, just like you said, if the government sticks to the current investors. But is it a matter of changing the non-performing investors, or do you see that the reversal of the privatization exercise as the best option?
I do not see wholesale reversal of the privatization exercise as the solution. What we need to do is identify investors that are not doing well and replace them. We don't have to do a wholesale reversal of that privatization exercise. In any case, if we try to do that, the penal fee that we will pay is hefty. At the time we were getting down to do business by way of this privatization, there were some stipulations put in the contract, meaning that if we default, it is not even the Nigerian court that the matter will go before. The matter will go before an arbitration, a court of arbitration, an international court of arbitration, and the fine that will be imposed as a result of default on our side will be hefty. This is why it has been difficult for any of the governments to say, "Oh, we are canceling this whole privatization exercise." No, they would rather look for ways by which they can make improvement to happen. They are not going to think of simply canceling everything because of that penal fee. That penal fee that is stipulated from the beginning. So this is what many Nigerians don't know when they simply say, "Oh, they should cancel this thing." No, it's not as easy as you think. It's not as easy as you think. To cancel it, you must think of the consequences. Are you prepared to pay billions of dollars as a recompense for canceling the transaction? That is what no Nigerian government is ready to do. And that is why we are literally stuck with them. The mistake was made in the beginning. A good number of them didn't have capacity. Some of them were bankers. They didn't have the experience in that sector, but we brought them in all the same. And government has done a lot by way of providing them with funding to help improve their liquidity. But we are still in the dark. Nigerians are still in darkness. So you can increase tariff as much as you want. The problems will remain, because if you cannot do something to improve generating capacity, that will affect the entire value chain. If you cannot do something to improve gas supply, to ensure that gas supply is consistent and it goes to our thermal stations. Egbin, for example, Egbin here is the biggest thermal gas-fired power station in West Africa. But many times they do not have access to gas supply, either because of militants have destroyed pipelines somewhere in the south, or for some other reasons. Sometimes even those gencos will be owing the gas suppliers. So if you are owing them, you don't expect them to supply you with gas. So we have all kinds of problems, Brian. We have all kinds of problems. And I know that even after this tariff increase, we will not even have the improvement that we want, because we have not solved the problems militating against consistent and unfailing power supply in our country. If a country like Egypt has more than enough power supply to the point that it's even thinking of exporting electricity to Europe, countries like this, countries like Cyprus, they are planning. Egypt is planning and signing deals to supply them with electricity, and some African countries as well. Why should Nigeria, the so-called giant of Africa, not even be able to provide the electricity needs of its people? It's a massive shame, and I feel really ashamed that we are doing just in the region of 3,500 megawatts.
That
That
sector seems to be
3,000 megawatts, if we complete the hydro plant in Mambila, that will give us, that alone will give us 3,050 megawatts of
megawatts.
electricity. If we
Right.
will complete Mambila alone. And now it is the whole country is willing just 3,000 something megawatts,
Yeah.
not even up to 44,000 on a consistent basis. I mean, it's something that should prick our conscience, something that should bother us.
It's very sad. It's really very sad. You know, that's why they say the sector is really jinxed. But then the immediate alternatives would be for Nigerians to revert to power generating sets due to poor power supply. But we already have a problem with the climate change, noise pollution, and other attendant issues. How worse would these get, Bikil?
For I really pity Nigerians. At this time, there's no choice. More and more people will resort to the use of generating sets. And unfortunately, generating sets are costlier now because of foreign exchange issues and all that, because of the poor naira value. Anything that you are importing from Nigeria, the price will have gone up now because our currency is struggling against the dollar and other global currencies. So people are forced to buy these generators, though they become more expensive. People are forced to resort to generators because electricity supply is not constant. It's been very, very bad lately. Look, diesel now sells at 750 naira per liter. Just some months back, before March, diesel was selling at 255 naira per liter. Now it's gone to 755. Hotels are struggling now because they have to buy diesel to power their generators. You can't keep your patrons in darkness. You can't allow your patrons to suffer extreme heat in your rooms. So hotels now have to sacrifice, use a lot more diesel than they were using before because high price of diesel coincides with a period when electricity supply is experiencing tremendous decline. So this is the situation that we have found ourselves. It's terrible. I stayed in an hotel in Maiduguri last week. Let me tell you, Maiduguri, in Borno State capital, has been in darkness for more than a year because Boko Haram destroyed some transmission lines. And when those transmission lines were repaired, Boko Haram went back and destroyed them again. So they've not been able to solve that problem in Maiduguri. So people have been living in darkness, in extreme heat. You can imagine the Sahelian heat at this time. Our people are grappling with it and there's no light. When I stayed in that hotel, they will put on the generator at 5 p.m. and switch it off. They'll put it on at 5 p.m. and switch it off at 8 a.m. So in daytime, don't expect to watch TV in your room. I just hope that we will find a way to solve this problem once and for all.
My audio. Let me see another alternative. Okay, Vikel,
Yeah.
I'll take my question. Let's think that. by looking at the Nnamdi Kanu issue. The Ohaneze Ndigbo worldwide says that releasing the leader of the proscribed indigenous people of Biafra, Nnamdi Kanu, from detention will restore peace and security in the zone. So with the recent twist of events coming from that zone, do you think Kanu's release and some of the other people in detention would solve these problems?
I think that since this whole problem began as a result of the detention of, I believe that if he's released, if we find a political solution, we will experience peace in the Southeast. We've been in this situation before. When the Niger Delta Avengers and other militants in the South were attacking our oil installations, our oil terminals, export terminals, and they reduced Nigeria's oil exports to about 500,000 a day, whereas our OPEC quota is in the region of 2.2 million barrels a day. We had to find a solution. Vice President Jemina Shibajo and the former Minister of State for Petroleum, Ibe Kachuku, had to engage some of the militants using back channels, and they stopped the destructive work that they were doing. They stopped the extreme sabotage of the Nigerian economy. So I want to believe that if it worked in that case, then if we are to adopt that measure in respect of Nnamdi Kanu, we could achieve the same result. But I doubt if the president would agree to a political solution unless he can see signs that IPOB and the ESN and other people suspected to be disrupting the peace of the Southeast will be ready to embrace peace. The search for peace is not a one-track thing. It's not a one-way thing. It has to involve all stakeholders. So if the president is convinced that if he took that decision, the lawlessness in the Southeast, which culminated in the beheading of 2 soldiers who are married and who are going to celebrate their wedlock in a manner. They were beheaded in the Southeast. So if the president can see the sign that, yes, there is a commitment to peace, the people on the other side will see no reason to not embrace the peace, then the president will be willing to take that decision. I believe he will be willing to take that decision. That had happened in the past. It happened under President Yar'Adua. It also happened under this president, negotiating, reaching out to militant groups in exchange for peace. So I believe it can happen. Everyone mentions Nnamdi Kanu, that look, Nnamdi Kanu should be out of prison. If he's out of prison, that peace will come. I want to believe that if he's released, peace will come to the Southeast. I have no reason to believe that even if he's released, that the killings will go on. Yes, we have to admit that things got worse in the Southeast with the breaching of security at the Imo Correctional Center and the release of 1,844 prisoners. That was the turning point. It was after that things got really bad. We are led to believe that some of the people killing Nigerians in the southeast are actually some of the people who are forcibly released from prison. Because before then, it wasn't this bad.
Mikhail,
So now,
let me butt in. Fabian Akeze on YouTube channel, watching live, he disagrees with you, saying that releasing Nnamdi Kanu will lead to the further breakdown of law and order. And he went on to say that when he was released before, was there peace? He says, no, let the court decide.
the question to ask is, were they killing people like this? I'm a historian, and without being modest, I'm knowledgeable about current affairs. There was no time in the life of the Southeast when people were being killed in the. There's no reason to compare. What you could say was that Nnamdi Kanu refused to give up his agitation for a new state of Biafra. He was killing people like this until April 5, 2021. April 5, 2021 was the turning point. That was when we now began to see people being killed in the manner in which they are being killed now. At a point, there was nothing like ESN in the Southeast. We are saying that security got worse after the release of those guys from prison and after the trial of Nnamdi Kanu began. Things got really, really bad. Things got worse.
All right. Some are still saying that they don't see it as solving the problem at the end of the day. But then this group has been involved in a lot of violence, just like you said too, and has been seen as being
a matter of opinion. It's a matter of opinion.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Brian, it's a matter of opinion.
Yeah.
I am saying that Nigeria, in the past, Nigeria opted for political solution and we reaped the benefits. So why are people acting like seeking a political solution is something strange? I've given the example of Colombia. People have killed one another for more than 50 years. Now they've looked for political solutions. These are people who have killed one another. They've killed more than 1 million people. But now they've gone back. Government has decided to negotiate with the FARC rebels. And we now have a semblance of peace. The way people are, the way Colombia was being reported, that is no longer happening. It's no longer happening. Violence is not always the solution. Sometimes you need dialogue to achieve lasting peace. This is the point that I'm making. I'm not saying that, they should not put anybody on trial. Of course, you can put people on trial. But you also must find a way to stop the killings. I'm concerned about the killings because it's innocent people who are being killed. So how do we put an end to the killings? Whatever we can do to put an end to the killings, I am for it. Whatever we can try, which could lead us to a solution, I am for it. But until you try something, you can't just say, it will not work, it will not work. So this is my view. Yeah. I don't like what's going on in the Southeast. I don't like how people are being killed. I don't like how the economy of the Southeast is being literally destroyed because of the activities of gunmen that we have found it difficult to tame. If we cannot tame the gunmen, then we have to find other ways of solving the problem. If we would tame the gunmen, I would be happy.
Exactly, it's the same conversation. Yeah, it's the same conversation I was also having with the producer of the show before we came live. We talked about the things happening in the southeast. It used to be very, very peaceful, being touted as very peaceful,
Yes.
region. So just today, again, BKO, 3 persons, including a police officer, were reported to have been killed in a gun battle with IPOB in Imo State. So do you even see the southeast security issues altogether getting resolved real soon?
It's difficult to say. If from the evidence that I see, this kind of killings will continue. And I've been to that region. I've been to that region. I can tell you that, look, it's not in all cases that the military solution is the best. Sometimes the military approach is the best. Sometimes it's not. Because this is not a pitched battle. If any group goes into a pitched battle against the Nigerian army, that group will be defeated. But insurgency, what we are seeing in the southeast is like an insurgency. And it's difficult to handle. Because we don't know where next they will strike. They could strike in a remote village, as it happened with those people who were killed while registering people for election. It was in a remote village. And we don't have security men all over Nigeria. There are places where you won't have presence of security men. It is places like this that they are happy to go to and kill our people. I'm tired of reading about our people being killed. And just as I said earlier, if we can deal with them militarily and put an end to the killing of our people, of course I'll be the happiest. But where you are unable to do that, and the war goes on for years, then you must look for other solutions. You must look for other ways of solving the problem.
That's amazing. So let me quickly take this final question. As regards the first topic that we discussed, one of our respondents here is saying that I just saw it a while ago, but let me quickly let me say it the way he tried to say it. Let me paraphrase. He said that they should ban the use of generators in government houses, in public places and government houses, so that when there is no power, then there will be no power to use. So this will solve the power, issue. Do you think so?
No. Well, it's a ridiculous suggestion. We are talking about public places. Public places are not inhabited by people in government alone. If you think by making people in government suffer,
sorry, BKO, the person actually means government establishments, not just public places, government establishments precisely. So
like ministries and the rest?
As long as it's
ministries, it's not the solution. It's not the solution. People have said that generator sellers were sabotaging. It's a lie. It's a lie. It's not the reason we have problems. Look, the whole world is moving in the direction of renewable energy. Nigeria needs to do a lot more by way of off-site power solutions, off-grid power solutions, like solar, like wind. We need to even build more hydro power stations because we have water in abundance. A country like Brazil relies almost entirely on hydro, using the Amazon River tremendously. So let's look at other power generating sources. We have them in abundance. We have sun. We have in our country, especially in northern Nigeria, we can do solar. That is the solution. We can electrify many communities, using these renewable energy sources, rather than waiting for power supply from the national grid. We should concentrate on developing power sources off the grid and we will be able to electrify a lot of our communities. Because as you can see, there's problem with public power supply from the national grid. So we can bypass it and begin to look for other sources of power generation like small hydro plants, like solar, like wind. So even there are other sources that we can use.
Yeah, makes sense.
Other sources.
Makes sense. Right. Well, and that's our show for today's edition of Issues with Jide. Special thanks to you, Babajide Kolade-Otitoju, for those insightful analyses as always.
Thank you. Thank you for doing it with me again today. See you next week.
Thank you very kindly. And thanks to you, to our audience, for joining us on every edition. We saw all the comments there and we saw all the fighting and infighting. Just take it easy on yourselves. It's just for a better Nigeria. And that's the reason Big Hill has always been on this show, to ensure that we have our opinions heard and then we find a lasting solution to the impasse, the quagmire that we find ourselves in this country. You can see the program again anytime by subscribing to our YouTube channel, TVC News. Click on the subscribe button to get the latest information. On behalf of the team, I'm Ibrahim Sheita. See you again next edition. Bye for now.